Hey, welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, presented and brought to you by FanDuel as we have another transfer portal recap to get to. And this is a pretty interesting one as it's going to be a little bit of an interesting offseason for Maryland. Not a whole lot of moves made, but definitely some interesting stuff going on with Mike Locksley and some of his freshmen that he's going to be bringing back. And so we have Matt Germack here to talk with us about the Maryland Terrapins and what they did in the transfer portal. Matt, works for the Testudo Times, and he does good work over there. I've read some of his content. Make sure I did my research to make sure Matt knew his stuff. He does know his stuff. And Matt, we appreciate you being here. Tell people where they can find your work at.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I appreciate it. I'd like to think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, like you said, you can find us testudotimes.com, part of the SB Nation network. You can find me on Twitter, Matt, first name, last name, Matt Germack. And follow us on Twitter at Testudo Times and Instagram at Testudo_Times.
There we
and
go.
TikTok if we ever get on there.
At some point, right? It's a process. So yeah, I just realized that I did not put our names up there. So there you go. If you want to find Matt's stuff, go on over there and check it out. So
all right, Matt, Testudo Times is all journalism students at the University of Maryland. And as many of your readers may know, the Washington Post no longer has a sports section. And they were the paper that covered the University of Maryland sports. So be sure to check out Testudo Times, check out the Diamondback, our other student publication, because at this point we are doing the most in-depth coverage of Maryland athletics that is out there.
For sure. And it's one of the main places that I go to. I have a couple other places that I go to as well. I mean, I have 2 or 3 different places I go to, but Testudo Times is the one I got bookmarked on my my Google Chrome here. So it's the first one I hit up. All right, Matt, the transfer portal offseason time is an interesting time for Maryland. Obviously, Mike Locksley, the season started off well, 4 wins there, and then didn't end so well, but you had a lot of freshmen on that team that you didn't want to lose. So Maryland decides to bring Mike Locksley back. Jim Smith seems to, want to give him one more shot. It kind of seems like here. I'm not going to ask you to speculate on his job security or anything like that, but he did come back with the with the expectation that he would bring back players, and he did. He's bringing back Malik Washington, Sidney Stewart, Zahir Mathis. Just tell us about some of the guys that Mike Locksley was able to bring back and how impactful they can be next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only reason Michael Locksley has lasted as long as he has is because he is, for all of his other shortcomings as a coach, he still is one of the best, pound for pound, one of the best recruiters in the country. And this most recent class that he brought in, the freshman this past year, so the class of 25, it was a home run. Nothing short of it. This is definitely his last shot. I don't have to speculate on that. This is his last shot. In part, I think another not insignificant reason that he's that he is Maryland's coach this upcoming year is because his buyout is substantial. And it becomes not substantial next year if these things don't work out. But the main 3 to highlight that most of their resources went into keeping were Malik Washington and then a pair of edge rushers in Sidney Stewart and Zahir Mathis. Start with Malik Washington. Came in as a 4-star quarterback, but a late riser on some of these 24/7 on 3 type boards. Went from like the low hundreds to, I believe, top 50 by the end of his cycle. And he was one of only a few, I want to say 4 freshman quarterbacks to start the season as the starter. And he showed why they had that type of confidence in him. He's a type of guy that athletically you look at and he could be a guy that's a first round, if not top 10 pick when his time comes. He's 6'5", 230 plus speed, very, very mobile. He's got a cannon, very, very solid accuracy. At least he displayed it. He can make accurate throws to all parts of the field. We saw him attack the field side beyond the numbers, which is something you rarely see college quarterbacks doing, let alone freshmen. And he did so with pretty frequent success. The stats don't necessarily back up what you saw on tape. Part of that is the offense they were running, a little bit weak at the skill positions, and a freshman quarterback that is adjusting to the Big Ten and Big Ten defenses. I mean, I would say his 4 best games were his first 4 games, and those were his 3 non-conference opponents and Wisconsin. And then after that, things kind of they took a step back. I don't have his average depth of target numbers in front of me, but it was a very quick hitter offense. They were, and if it wasn't an RPO or a screen, it was a slant pass, quick out, something along those lines. But I mean, he led the Big Ten in passing attempts at 473, which you have to remember, Maryland didn't play a bowl game. There's one of only 6 Big Ten teams that didn't play a bowl game. So he led the Big Ten in attempts, playing as one of the only teams that played 12 games, only 2,963 yards on those 473 attempts, 57% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. We'll say a few of those interceptions were not on him. But a lot of the issues we saw out of Malik Washington are things that you expect from a freshman, a little indecisive at times, either indecisive or way too quick to get rid of the ball. It was an issue early in the season that he really didn't want to run. He had an ankle injury in the preseason, and he didn't want to run. He fixed that. The problem is they also are bringing back their offensive coordinator, Pep Hamilton, who was calling the offense that really limited what Malik was able to do. But I mean, we'll see if he has a Dylan Raiola type jump in year 2. I would say that's probably the best comparison as far as production goes.
Well, and you hope with him, getting another year in the system too, maybe he's more comfortable with it. He understands it more, that kind of stuff too.
A lot of continuity in the offensive line. I'm not too worried about it. He was one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I imagine it'll be that way again in 2025. Offensive line, run blocking, complete disaster. Pass blocking, one of the better units in the conference, all in all. But onto the defensive end, the other 2 guys that you absolutely have to talk about are Zahir Mathis and Sidney Stewart. Sidney Stewart was a 3-star edge rushing prospect. Zahir Mathis was a 4-star. But they were quietly underrated, in my opinion, one of the best stories in college football. 2 starting freshman edge rushers. And, freshman edge rushers, not a position you expect freshmen to really excel in. But both of them did, and they did immediately. I mean, 6 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss out of Zahir Mathis. Also a phenomenal run defender, Zahir Mathis is. Sidney Stewart, 7 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss. Mind you, both of them were playing injured for much of the latter half of the season. Having both of those guys back in 2025. And we also should mention, Maryland has the top edge rusher in the class of 2026 coming in this upcoming year, Zion Ely. So they have 3 guys who are legitimate all Big Ten edge rushers. This, assuming Zion Ely lives up to even 80% of what his hype is. They're going to have 3 edge rushers who are legitimate all Big Ten talents. I certainly did not think that both of Stewart and Mathis were going to be coming back, because it was a pretty open secret that Zion Ely would be here. I mean, he committed almost, I believe, over a year ago at this point. And, it's one of those situations where they have mentioned that they think they can have all 3 on the field. Maybe Zahir Mathis is a little bit lengthier. Maybe you bump him inside to like a 5-tech type spot. They run a lot of 5-man fronts. You could see Sidney Stewart. He's fast enough, athletic enough to play off-ball linebacker. I don't know how it's all going to fit together. Zion Ely is an edge rusher through and through, and he is a future top 10 pick if everything goes to plan. So he's going to be staying at edge rusher. But I mean, that is one of the best trios in the country, which it's rare that you can say Maryland has one of the best position groups in the country in anything. I mean, I certainly, as long as I've been watching the team, that's not something that I've been able to say.
And it speaks to what you said about Mike Locksley. As much as he does have his deficiencies and stuff like that in certain areas, he's somebody that's going to go out there and get you typically the best talent there in DC, the DMV, all those different places. He knows that area well, and we've talked on this channel before. We've had guys on, from other Maryland sites on here telling us about where the program was at when Mike Locksley got there and how much turmoil it was in with a former player passing away and everything, and so he was able to come in and kind of revitalize and strengthen the connection with the community again. And so it is a much deeper story than I think some people recognize that maybe don't know at all.
I mean, the thing that I would say about Michael Locksley, he also grew up in the area. He grew up, you hear him talk about him going to Maryland games as a kid. This was his dream job from the second he got into coaching. He is Maryland. He's not something. Firing Michael Locksley is not like firing your normal 4-8 coach. Like, he is deeply, deeply ingrained into the program in a way that you see almost like he almost has a kind of like Coach K at Duke type feel, where like obviously Coach K is Coach K and he is
Right.
won everything there is to win. But Michael Locksley has ingrained himself in Maryland football culture that deeply, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yeah, if he can just put together some wins. I mean,
Yeah.
he had, I think, the 3-year stretch there after COVID where
Yeah,
they
3
kind of
straight
improved the
bowl wins,
record
which
each year. So
3 straight bowl wins, which they've never done in program history. I don't think that, I think in the year 2026, if you're a Big Ten team, your goal can't be to win 8 games in a season.
mhm.
That's why I think Michael Locksley needs to go, but he can get him back to 8 wins this upcoming year. Absolutely. 7 or 8 wins.
For sure. I mean, they had a lot of talent in the 2 deep. I mean, you look through and kind of look at the depth chart. They had a ton of guys in the 2 deep last year that even got some time. I mean, Messiah Delhomme, he was another
Mhm.
guy that got some time this past year as well.
CJ Smith at linebacker,
CJ Smith at linebacker.
really solid
Daniel
player.
Wingate, he's back, correct?
Yes, Daniel Wingate
Yeah.
will be back. It was kind of a bit this year. Maryland posted a graphic for literally every player that they retained, which
Mhm.
is a lot of players on
Quite
a
a
college
few. Yeah.
roster.
Yeah.
But Daniel Wingate was one of the early ones.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, let's talk about the additions they made. It's really good to talk about the guys they're keeping around and everything else, and that's awesome. But they also went into the transfer portal and made some additions, and they're obviously going to be able to make an impact this season. Matt, who are some guys that are going to be added to this team to the transfer portal that you think could make a big impact?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty active. It's been a pretty active offseason in the portal, all things considered, at least in the amount of bodies they've gotten. 11 incoming transfers at the moment, actually 12, because there is one person who is not on this 24/7 Sports list.
Oh,
But it's a pretty no crazy high level talents out of the portal, all 3-star portal additions, but filling a lot of holes, kind of taking an NFL free agency approach to just, filling the spots that they need. Uh, 2 guys that I do want to highlight, which is something Maryland, I'm honestly pretty impressed Locksley pulled off, was they got 2 guys that left in the portal after 2024 to come back for 2026. That's Preston Howard, tight end, who transferred to Auburn, for
mhm.
2025, comes back for 2026. I think he's going to play a pretty big role. And then Levon Johnson, defensive tackle, transferred to Texas for 2025, comes back for 2026. Neither of those guys had particularly good years at those schools, but they'll absolutely play roles. Maryland a little bit thinned out on they thinned out after 2024 on the interior defensive line, but that interior defensive line is kind of a group of freshmen this past year, so incoming sophomores, kind of a bunch of rotational guys, but no real heads to that. And Levon Johnson absolutely could be. I mean, he showed a lot of. I didn't watch him this past year at Texas. He showed a lot of potential when he was at Maryland in 2023, 2024. The receiver room was another room that they really attacked just to get bodies, because you're losing Octavian Smith and Shalik Knotts. They're Shalik Knotts and Jaleel Farouk. Their top 3 receivers, all from this past year, all gone. So wide receiver was a position they absolutely had to go aggressively on, and I think they did a pretty solid job recouping the group. I mean, there are some depth guys that are going to emerge into bigger roles. A name that I'll throw out right now is Caleb Webb. Caleb Webb, I think, is going to be a big part of Maryland's offense in 2026. But the 2 guys they got, one being Chris Durr, 5'10", 171, small receiver, went to Wyoming. 2 strong years at Wyoming this past year, 45 receptions, 469 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then the other guy that they got with a very long name, Naeem Abdul Rahim Gladding, who was at Old Dominion this past year, 51 catches, 667 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 foot, 198 pounds. I think it is noteworthy that neither of those guys are from the Maryland area or from the DMV, which is, usually where Locksley tries to tap in for some of these recruits. But I mean, the portal has always been an area where Maryland has had marginal success with receivers. This past year, it was Jaleel Farouk, who was honestly pretty underwhelming, but was a big part of the offense all in all. And then Caden Prather, 2 years ago, I believe would have been 2024, brought in Caden Prather, brought in Tyrese Chambers. Tyrese Chambers was expected to be a big part of that offense. He ended up having one catch and then leaving the team midway through the season. But Caden Prather was a 7th round pick in the NFL. He had some very solid games, really solid 2 years for Maryland. So I think that you can make it work with this group, especially with the guy throwing them the ball, because the guy throwing them the ball is good enough to elevate his receivers, which is not something you can say very often at a school like Maryland.
Yeah. Mike Locksley knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. From Talia Tungavailoa to now Malik Washington. Seems like Mike Locksley knows what he's going to do there. So these wide receivers coming in, they know maybe not know what the offense is going to be right away, but they know what this quarterback is going to be because they know Mike Locksley and what he's able to produce for him. So all right, let's finish it up here, Matt, with some of the guys that they lost. Now this is kind of the part that not everybody loves to talk about, but I do think it's important to get through, maybe who are some of the guys they lost. That would be some impact guys. I think Nolan Ray was one, the running back there, starting running back last season. But as you said, the running game wasn't exactly anything super special to write home about. But I'll let you take it away. Who are some guys that they lost that you feel like might be impactful that they aren't coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious as the season went on that Nolan Ray would be leaving. I don't believe he ended up as their leading rusher, but he was supposed to be the lead rusher this season. Really, really disappointing year. Granted, the run blocking Maryland had out of its offensive line was, I believe it was PFF's worst in the country. Some of the worst run blocking in the country for sure. He did not have the holes, and he's an explosive back. He needs room to run into to create those explosives, but he is gone. It'll be DeJuan Williams, who will be a redshirt sophomore next year. And then actually another guy they tried to bring in, Daquan Jones, I believe or Daquan Jones, running back from Old Dominion, for whatever reason was not able to enroll at Maryland. I don't know why. He was a guy that got in the portal and it was announced that he had signed, and for whatever reason there was an issue with him enrolling. He will not be at Maryland. So the run game could be a bit of a struggle next year, because DeJuan Williams is a fine back. I think Maryland has a really good history of getting running back, of at least supporting running back seasons being fine. I mean, you look at Roman Hemby, I think is the best example of that. I mean, wins a national championship at Indiana this year. He was phenomenal, right? But that was the system. We always kind of could tell that Roman Hemby could be that player, but you never really saw it at Maryland just because he didn't have the opportunities to. But outside of that, I mean, all in all, they held up pretty well in the portal. The big names, quote unquote, that left were guys that I think they can bounce back from. Guys that maybe had down years or were a bit disappointing. Guys like Aliu Ba, right guard. One of the eye test and the eye test and the stats test on him don't line up. I don't think he was a very good right guard, but he's gone. That'll be someone Maryland needs to replace. That's a hole, but they do have Jalen Gilchrist, who I believe some places ranked a 5-star, who came in as a freshman this past year, broke his leg in the opener. I would expect that he slots in at right guard pretty easily. Michael Harris, a linebacker they lost in the portal, another guy that was expected to have a pretty big role in 2025, didn't have any role. I probably didn't even play 20 snaps on defense. Braden Lee at corner, Leon Houghton, their backup tight end. Just a lot of guys that it's unfortunate to lose, but after 2024 into 25, the portal cycle before this one, where Maryland just lost starter after starter after starter, it was not like that at all. Their biggest position group loss was in the secondary, and they have a ton of corner depth. They actually retained their top 2 corners from this past year. Other 2 guys I didn't talk about, Jamari Glasker and Dante Joyner. So, this was, I think I was expecting this to be a much worse portal for Maryland than it was, at least in the exit guys they were losing, and they retained just about everyone that was crucial to the team in 2025.
Yeah, and retention costs money. You got to go out there and spend the money. So obviously, Jim Smith, the athletic director there, and everything got behind Moxley. Yeah,
he's putting in the work. He's putting in the work to get that alumni money.
Yes, he is.
He's in a lot of meetings.
Well, looks like it worked out for him because, like you
Yeah.
said, they're bringing back a whole lot of guys, retaining a whole lot. And it's going to give Mike Locksley a good opportunity to have a good season this year. Maybe 6, 7 wins, maybe even 8 wins, like you talked about, could get there for sure. So, all right, Matt, good stuff here. Really appreciate you coming on and talking through the Maryland transfer portal with us. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having me. When I say 8 wins, I think Maryland's got a rough schedule this year. I think right now I would slot them right about 6-6 looking at their schedule, but 7-6 if you include a bowl game, because they have not lost. The one thing about Michael Locksley led teams is they dominate when they're playing anyone outside of the Big Ten. As soon as conference play starts, it's a different story. But I mean, I remember Maryland with missing maybe 10 starters, including Talia Tagovailoa, going down to Nashville and beating Auburn 31-3 in the Music City Bowl, which was something that should not have happened. Locksley has an ability to pull off wins that shouldn't happen. I'd say also week 3, tune into week 3 for Maryland playing Virginia Tech. James Franklin has a long history of beef with Maryland. That is going to be a very fun game that you should all watch.
I did a big noon kickoff projection video at one point, and in that video I actually said week 3, I said, watch out, this might be the game that they put on big noon kickoff between Mike Locksley and James Franklin, because there could be some storylines with it that they go to here and put that one on there. We'll see if it happens, absolutely. But that would be a really interesting game. And then obviously, all the Big Ten people that don't like James Franklin and the Penn State people that don't like him, they'll be rooting for Maryland.
Yeah, well, it's been a joke with me and my editors that Maryland has the longest non-conference win streak in the country right now. I believe they've won 19 straight non-conference games. It's going to be 21 games going into that game, and it would be spectacular if James Franklin was the guy that ended that streak. I mean, that is the storyline to end all storylines.
For sure. Me and my co-host, we joke that, Mike Locksley in September, you don't want to face him in September. No. October, November, yeah, sure, you want to face him then. But September, Mike Locksley, there's something about the weather in September that you don't want to face Mike Locksley then.
Yeah, September, Michael Locksley's a Hall of Fame head coach.
There we go. So, all right, Matt, thank you once again for coming on. Everybody go check out Matt's stuff over at the Testudo Times. Go find him on Twitter, X. When they get the TikTok up and running, go on over there as well. But definitely support Matt's work and everything they do over there. So thanks for listening, everybody. Go on over to the Transfer Portal Recap playlist. We have all of them there. We only have one team left at this point. We have Purdue. Purdue is the last team left. I am recording with Dustin Schutte here most likely Wednesday at noon. So you guys should get that either Wednesday evening or Thursday morning on YouTube and the podcast feed as well. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a good one.